to David.
Test. Hello. Hi. Good afternoon. And hello to Vancouver. I spent many years living in North America, particularly on the East Coast. I went to school in New York and work in New York, and altogether lived on the East Coast for 11 years before moving back to Hong Kong. And now I still travel very frequently to North America, particularly to the West Coast now, to do the work on Green Monday. However, the last time I came to Vancouver was more than 15 years ago. So I'm glad to be back and enjoy the very nice sunny weather. I can tell you for sure that the weather here is better than the weather in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is 36 degrees and humidity is about 200%. And you almost feel like you cannot breathe when you're outdoor. And well, weather actually is not just a good introduction, but as a matter of fact, very relevant to the subject that I want to share with you today, and that is Green Monday. From mindful eating to mindful living, and then into a mindful ecosystem. Our planet, and I think this is something that everyone can feel. You don't need to be a scientist to make this statement, and that is our planet is not feeling well. Our planet is not doing well. If the planet were a person, then the planet right now is experiencing fever, very serious fever, and it's getting worse and worse. And it seems like based on the path that we are walking down, it seems like this fever will be irrecoverable, to the point that the planet will be so ill that maybe the whole system will collapse very soon. Now, 20, 30 years ago, the term climate change wasn't something that we talked about all the time. But I think now, if you search climate change on Google or anywhere, it's a term that appears daily, if not any minute. The reality is the planet is sick, and we are experiencing extreme weather any part of the world. Doesn't matter if we're talking about North America, China, North Pole, South Pole, anywhere. The planet is not responding to how it used to, and a lot of extreme events are happening. So whether that means extreme heat. So for example, just this week or like within the last 10 days, in numerous cities in China, they are seeing 40 degrees Celsius. So 40 degrees Celsius would be how many degrees Fahrenheit? I think 110 or something like that, maybe over 110. About 110, right? Fahrenheit would be 40 degrees Celsius. Now imagine 110. Even a 90-degree day is already unbearable, but 110 is becoming a norm in many cities, and this is not just China. This is anywhere in the world. And of course, when it gets cold, it also gets extremely cold. So some of the pictures that we usually see in movies, like for example, like there's a movie called The Day After Tomorrow, right? So, Chicago is under ice, is negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit, in the movie. But those kind of things are happening in real life. It's not movie or Hollywood material. It's happening, on a frequent basis in our daily life. And with climate change, huge fluctuation, from extreme heat to extreme cold, what that means is it also influences everything that happens around us. So particularly, for example, when we have extreme heat, so the next thing that naturally will happen is we will see drought, right? When it is very hot, then there's a lack of water. So I think a lot of people know that California has been experiencing drought for 4 years now, and it's getting worse. So a lot of whether it's reservoir or water in California, if you go see those pictures or if you go there in person, it's almost all dried up. So California actually is using a lot of water from the other states, such as Colorado, such as the ones that are near California. But California itself is running out of water. Now, California happens to be a state that grows a lot of fruits and vegetables. As a matter of fact, about 1/3 of vegetables of the United States and 2/3 of fruits of the United States are grown in California. So when a state like Cal is going through drought, what does that mean? That means food supply is in danger. And when food supply is in danger, what does that mean? That means human sustainability is in danger. So a lot of times when we talk about climate change, people are looking at polar bear in North Pole losing their home, and ice is getting, we are losing ice in a huge way. And maybe one day Manhattan will be underwater. Maybe Hong Kong Island will be underwater. Or maybe even part of Vancouver will be underwater. So those are things that scientists are predicting may happen in 30 years, 50 years, 80 years. So that's usually what people think of about climate changes. Okay, Manhattan will be underwater by 2050, 2080. But 2080 is still another 60 years from now, right? So, okay, that's not that urgent, even though we know it would be bad. But actually, the consequence of climate change, we do not need to wait 80 years. We do not need to wait 50 years. We may not even need to wait 5 years, because the impact can be felt today. And that is not just a matter of when you go out, it's very hot or very uncomfortable, but rather it changes or it impacts our food supply. Whether it's because of drought or because of flooding, we lose a significant amount of crops that we grow. So actually, when we talk about sustainability in the world, the general theme about green, right? What does green stand for? Is we want the world to be sustainable. I think one of the most overlooked, but at the same time the most obvious thing that people don't talk about is food. In cities like Vancouver or in cities like Hong Kong, for example, generally we are generally pretty lucky that food is not a major issue. Or water is not a very major issue. But the reality is, in many parts of the world, simply people don't have access to food and access to clean water. And that is going to become more and more prevalent in a lot of the parts of the world. So go back to the roots of climate change. What causes climate change? What causes carbon footprints? So the impact of climate change, food is one of the aspects, but what causes climate change? Now, I'll tell you a little personal story, and then I'll get into Green Monday. The personal story is I became vegetarian about 15 years ago. So 2001 was when I turned vegetarian. And the reason is very simple, actually, is because I became a Buddhist. I'm born in a Buddhist family. My parents have always been very devout Buddhists. But for a long time, I don't exactly know what Buddha taught. I just follow them to go to monastery, to listen to chanting, or to do some chanting myself, but never really understand the teaching behind it. But then around 2000, 2001, that was when I started to read more about Buddhist teaching, exactly who Buddha was. And then I learned about compassion. I learned about a lot of the terms that we talk about, cause and consequence or cause and effects. And to me, if we follow the teaching of Buddha, then I guess the one very basic thing that we need to practice is compassion. So in 2001, I decided that it would be very hypocritical if I say that I'm a Buddhist, but at the same time I inflict suffering on other living beings. They just don't seem to work together. So I say the first thing I should do, and I should take action right away, is not to harm any animals anymore. And also, I guess another point that always caused me to think is, why is there a double standard in terms of the animals that we choose to love versus the animals that we choose to eat, right? When we see a dog or a cat, right, we love them, we adore them, and we treat them like family. Or some people actually treat them better than family. But at the same time, when we look at pigs and chicken and cow, well, we see them as food. We look at them as delicious, right? And I can't really understand that double standard. Who is to decide which animals we love and which animals we kill? So in 2001, I turned vegetarian. And not long after that, I start reading, just like you do anything, right? If you're into golf, then of course you will watch a lot of TV and read a lot about golf. If you're into whatever, you start to read a lot and learn a lot about it. So I read about vegetarianism, and by about 2005, I study a report come from the United Nations that says livestock industry, or simply meat, is actually one of the biggest reasons for carbon footprint. And that was a big shock to me. That was a big shock because climate change was already quite bad, although nothing compared to today. Today we're in a really bad situation. 10 years ago, it was becoming headline. Okay? But United Nations says that, hey, when we think about climate change, the reason is carbon footprints. And when we think about carbon footprints, we think about cars, we think about airplanes, the whole transportation industry. We also think about the energy sector. So those are the reasons that cause climate to change. No one between a car and a cow, I don't think anyone would say the cow would do more damage than the car, right? I mean, the car is always worse, right? The cow is just, food for us. But the reality, which is a huge surprise, is through the whole industrial agriculture and animal farming process, we are feeding a lot of unnatural things into these animals, and they are not grown, they are not raised in the traditional way that they were used to. So that's why it also leads to a lot of behavior or just experience that animals would not give before. And one of that is, for example, with any animals, particularly with lamb and cows, they give out a lot of gas okay, we're not eating right now, so I guess it's okay to say it. So through their farting and their burping, that they are giving out a lot of gas, and that gas is not just carbon dioxide. That gas is methane. And methane is 20, 30 times worse in terms of greenhouse gas effect than CO2. So, and you can go to YouTube now and you can easily find a lot of videos. If you just type, methane and cow, for example, or carbon footprint and cow, you will find a lot of video that when they tied like a little plastic bag or like a bag next to the cow, it gets filled up within like an hour or 2 hours because of the gas that they give out. So, and all of those are greenhouse gas. So the more I study, and then I realize another thing, that greenhouse gas or carbon footprints is not the only problem with livestock industry. It is also a very inefficient way to produce food. It's a very low efficiency way to produce food. Now, usually, I mean, if everyone in the world were vegetarian, then the world would be very simple, right? You just grow crops, whether they're vegetables, whether they're fruits, whether they're corn, whatever that is, and human can consume those plants or those crops. But what we decide to do is let's feed the animals first. let's feed all these crops to the animals so that they spend 18 months, 24 months to grow, and then they are fed to us. But we actually can eat those plants. So this intermediate process becomes a completely unnecessary step. Yet this becomes the common way we consume food today. Like most of the fast food in particular, when we talk about burgers, when we talk about fried chicken, these are all meat, right? And they all go through this food chain of first feed the animals before they're fed to us. So this is a very inefficient way because that step in between is unnecessary. Okay? We can easily just consume the crops. So what are the problems we have today? And this slide is kind of the one snapshot that I can tell you what is not green about consuming meat. Now this is not about a moral issue. This is simply a scientific breakdown. So this part, we talk about climate change. The entire meat industry or livestock sector, it produces about 15% of all of our carbon footprint in the world. And when you look at transportation, all the trucks and cars and planes combined only produce 13%. So usually when we think about a low carbon lifestyle, the first thing that we think about is let's drive less, let's use public transportation more, walk more, right? Those are I guess the first thing that people think of when they think of low carbon. But actually, it doesn't need to be that complicated. Simply eat less meat is a low carbon way to live, because if you look at the right hand side, for the same amount of food, this is 1 kilogram of food, if you are consuming lamb or if you're consuming beef, this is the carbon that you're producing. Versus when you're eating like tomato or tofu, this is the carbon. So we are talking about at least 20 times, 20 or 30 times worse when you're eating particularly red meat. So the worst is lamb, and then beef, and then pork, and then, well, we didn't put it here, but poultry, like chicken would be below pork, and then of course the lowest would be plants. Okay, so, and this carbon footprint has not taken into account where the food come from. So if, like in Hong Kong, for example, a lot of food are imported, right? So Hong Kong people eat beef from Japan, from Australia, or from the US. That traveling has not been calculated into this. So when you take that into account, someone in Hong Kong is eating a steak from US versus, let's say, I'm eating a vegetarian meal and those vegetables are from China or from Taiwan, let's say. Then our carbon footprint, probably we're talking about 50 or even 100 times when you combine both the food and the mileage of the food. So that's the climate change part. But that's not all. We talk about water, right? Again, eating one slice of steak consumes about 4,600 liters of water. If you consume the same amount of plant-based food, it only consumes 390 liters of water. So again, eating meat, you are talking about exhausting a lot more water from the planet. And we do not have endless water supply. We just talk about droughts in California, right? The planet does not have endless water supply. In fact, today, 1.5 billion people in the world do not have clean water. And that number is expected to rise to 3 billion by 2030. This is United Nations number. So by 2030, 2030 is very soon, right? Today is 2016. So 2030, 40% of our planet, about 3 billion people, will not have access to clean water. But that is not because we don't have water, but because these animals drink away the clean water. So humans end up having no water to drink. I mean, this is avoidable. This is not an inevitable thing to happen. This is something that's avoidable, but because we are not smart in the way we consume resources, animals basically drink away the water that we need. And that's not all. Finally, it's land. The planet has only finite amount of clean water, and of course the planet has only finite amount of land. And when we are using the land to do animal farming, to raise animal agriculture, again, obviously it consumes more, because first we need to grow food to feed the animals, and then the animals need land for them to live, right? We need places to grow them, to raise them. So if you're eating plant-based food versus when you're eating beef or pork, again, you're talking about easily 30 times more land resources required to grow the same amount of food. And as I said, the planet does not have infinite amount of land. So when it comes to growing food, water consumption, and carbon footprints, very simply, by the year of where we are at right now, 2016, this is one of the most ungreen thing to do. When someone is eating meat, it's a very ungreen thing, okay? And it directly threatens our sustainability. So these are the things that I read back in 2005, so about 11 years ago. And it was just a shock. I mean, I had a tough time digesting, not the food, but the data, because so I was thinking to myself, right? On one hand, simply by eating less meat, my original intention is to reduce suffering on animals or sentient beings. But then at the end, actually, it is also reducing suffering on us. Because if the climate is getting worse, if we're lacking land and water to grow food, at the end, who suffer? Of course, we suffer. I mean, when we're talking about sustainability, it's not something that is outside of us. It's absolutely related or relevant to us, right? So that was a huge aha, enlightening moment for me. So talk about cause and consequence, right? 因果. At the beginning, I was only thinking about let's reduce harm on other animals. But by reducing harm on other animals, it's also reducing harm on ourselves. Or on the flip side, if we hurt animals, it's also hurting us. So I start to realize that actually the whole concept of environmental protection has a lot to do with Buddhism, actually. Because this is all about cause and consequence. When you think about the recycle logo, right? The logo of recycling, is the triple arrow, right? Arrow, arrow, arrow. It's basically, what goes around comes around. So what you do, you will end up getting. I find that recycling logo to be very similar to the concept of karma. Is what you do to other people, you will end up receiving that treatment yourself. So I find that parallel to be extremely enlightening. Is when you apply Buddhist wisdom or Buddhist philosophy to daily life, one of the most obvious field that you can draw comparison and you can draw the parallel is the green industry. So for a while, I start to think, hey, applying Buddhist wisdom to daily life or to even a career It doesn't need to be a separate thing. Usually we think about, making money from our job is one, and then you start donating those money and try to do good to the world. But they are separate action. So make money through investment, make money through trading, whatever business you are in, right? And then after you make those money, hopefully after you make those money, then you do something good with it. You try to help people. But the concept is, can we combine the two? And I realized that green is an industry that you absolutely can combine the two. On one hand, when you are doing the green products or green service, you can still collect, you can still make a living, you can still have income. But through the products that you are doing or through the service that you are doing, you are helping the world simultaneously. It's not two separate actions, it's actually one action that encompasses both making a living and at the same time doing good. Or sometimes they simply say, do good and do well together. So those were kind of how the seeds were planted. And then finally, by 2012, so about 4.5 years ago, a good friend of mine, he is a very iconic social entrepreneur in Hong Kong. And he has started many social companies, social startups that help elderly, that help address poverty problems in Hong Kong. And he happens to also be a vegetarian. So over many meals, we have brainstormed ideas on how to help our society. But finally, one day, not surprisingly, over lunch, we start to talk about, hey, can we do something about food? Is there anything social that we can do with food? And I said, of course. That's actually something that in the back of my mind I want to do for a long time. I was just waiting for just the opportunity, waiting for the circumstances, 因緣和合, waiting for the circumstances to align. And then finally, this person who is a good friend of mine, he also happens to be a vegetarian, and he's a social entrepreneur. And he said, let's do something about food. I said, definitely. I mean, I have been waiting to do something on this for a long time. I just need, someone to do it with me, and let's create a good platform. So that's how we started the concept of Green Monday. Green Monday is altogether, this is altogether the organization tree of Green Monday. It has multiple arms under Green Monday. So collectively, we call this a social venture or social enterprise. On the social side, what we do is we create this movement called Green Monday. And the movement is to ask everyone on the planet to go green, to eat vegetarian at least one day a week. This is something that everyone can do. Doesn't matter if you are 3 years old or 35 years old or 85 years old. Doesn't matter if you're from North America, South America, Asia, Europe, North Pole, South Pole. Everyone can eat more plant-based food and also, of course, reduce your meat consumption. This is something that everyone can do. We do not ask people to convert to become vegetarian or vegan. That's not our agenda. To us, the world is not about black and white. It's not just, we're not about converting people from major meat eater or carnivore and then all of a sudden to become a herbivore and no in between. We're not interested in converting people. We're interested in shifting behavior. So, for example, in a Chinese meal, this is the easiest to explain. Is let's say we have 5 dishes. Let's say we cook 5 dishes, or 6. 6 is an easier number. Let's say we cook 6 dishes at home. Now, before maybe 5 out of 6 dishes are meat. Now, can we turn it into 3 dishes of meat and 3 dishes of plant-based food. That's it. But if we do that, right, everyone in the family become 50% vegetarian. Of course, if you choose 5 dishes vegetarian and 1 dish of meat, then the whole family become 80% vegetarian. And we use the same philosophy to talk to every school and every organization, every company out there. We go to HSBC, we go to Standard Chartered, we go to Columbia University, Hong Kong University, UCLA, Oxford, University of Zurich, University of Tokyo, National University of Singapore. We are now in 15 countries now, I think, the latest number. And the way we talk to them is change the ratio of the food served at your cafeteria. First on Monday, and then ideally every day.
So McDonald's will have to close down on Monday.
We actually managed to work with McDonald's in Hong Kong. We asked them to introduce a veggie burger, and now they create a new campaign called Create Your Taste, which is you assemble your own burger. And most of the ingredients are now plants. Of course, they still have the beef patty, but they now have a lot of alternatives. So mushroom, for example, the portobello mushroom, pineapple, and other substitute that you can put in. So our goal is not to force them to go out of business, but our goal, well, that will be very difficult. But our goal is to shift the way they do business. Yes?
I work out every day, so I went to my fitness center because I overheard the trainers tell people that they need to eat meat, so that they need to eat beef and blah, blah, blah for the protein. So I wrote a letter to the manager, but I wanted to people there because I think they look at me kind of like, what's she doing? But I was explaining it as well, right? Like maybe the trainers, they can explain to people that you don't just get your sources of protein from meat. Right?
I think
because they're not aware, right? They always think like, and people want to stay fit, so they listen to these people that look good, right?
Right.
So there's so much, right? There's when you, so I wonder if you go to any of the big fitness centers. This is at fitness centers
like Equinox. Yeah, right.
I will do it more now.
Yeah.
I will write the letters now, but I wonder if your organization.
We, of course, green is the macro issue. But then the micro issue, which involves each one of us, is health. And the truth is, many of our health problems come from eating too much meat. Nowadays, like with cancer, with heart disease, with diabetes, these are all caused by our wrong diets and also wrong perception about, for example, protein. So actually, when you eat, there are a lot of good protein from vegetables or plants. So for example, when you're eating broccoli, when you're eating cauliflower, when you're eating beans, soy and peas, particularly peas, right? These are all great source of protein. Now, of course, some people still eat eggs. So egg is still, of course, a good source of protein as well. So actually, we very much go into detail to break people's wrong perception that if you don't eat meat, you don't have protein. And if you don't have protein, you don't have any energy. Now, I accidentally also become an ambassador for vegetarian. So I tell people that you look at me, I've been eating vegetarian for 15 years, but I'm not pale. I'm full of energy. Actually, I think I have more energy than the people who eat meat. But the reality is, when you eat meat, right, a lot of the energy go to digesting the meat. Our whole digestive system are not built to process so much meat. We're not meant to do that. Our whole intestine go like this, right? If you look at all the animals that eat a lot of meat, their intestine is just straight because it's fast in, fast out. The longer the meat remains in your system, the more you absorb all the toxic from the meat. And now, meat is very toxic indeed because they inject so many chemicals into the animals nowadays. All of them have a lot of antibiotics, hormones, in order for them to grow fast, and they don't care if the animals are sick or not because they only care about slaughtering them, for chicken about 4 months, for beef maybe, or for cows maybe a year and a half, 2 years. But that's all they care about. The milk that we drink nowadays, very problematic, because the only way the cows can have so much milk is by injecting a lot of hormones. And they are consistently getting pregnant in order to get milk, right? So is the milk or the cow basically become a factory, to maximize the milk that we drink and the meats that we eat. So in order to do that is to put a lot of chemicals. So yes, when we are eating meats, we are actually absorbing all the chemicals and all the toxic into our system. So on one hand, we absolutely explain to people that there are many, many good sources of protein from plant-based food. There are a lot of superfood now that are plant-based. Actually, all the superfood are plant-based. So quinoa, I don't know, some of you may be familiar, 藜麥啦, quinoa, and then avocado is a good source of healthy fats. And then beetroot is good source for iron and many vitamins. Okay, kale, the vegetable kale, I'm sure many of you are familiar. Kale is the most nutritious green leaf vegetables or plants on the planet. So these are all great substitute, healthier substitute for meat. So what Green Monday Foundation does is we go around the world to build this partnership. So when we convert, we are not influencing just one person. We're influencing 10,000 people, 20,000 people, 50,000 people at a time. So if anyone know anyone at UBC or any schools in Canada, or particularly in British Columbia, we can talk to the head of sustainability and we can tell them that 400, 500 universities in the world have already launched Green Monday. Okay, you should join too. It doesn't cost them anything. They don't have to pay us. We don't charge anything for anyone to join Green Monday. Green Monday is an open source platform. Today or tomorrow, you simply eat a vegetarian meal, upload it on Instagram, upload it on Facebook, and tell people, hey, you should join Green Monday too. Or share it with your family and friends and colleagues. That's all. Everyone can be an ambassador of Green Monday. You can tell your friends, you can tell your family, you can tell your colleagues. That's why we say the movement is simple, viral, and actionable. A lot of the green things that people used to advocate before, right? For example, I think a lot of people have heard about the 3 R's of green: reduce, reuse, recycle, right? The 3 R's of green.
Remove the meat.
Sorry?
And remove the meat, another R.
Yes, remove the meat. That would be the 4th one. Yes, reduce. That's reduce too. Besides reducing using plastic bag, for example, right? Think about reducing meat consumption. That's the reduce right there. And we want something to be very actionable. Anyone can participate now. Like after today, after this talk, tonight when you go home, or tomorrow happens to be a Monday, you can go Green Monday immediately. Now, of course, Green Monday is only a symbolic start, right? Monday is the beginning of the week. It's a symbolic start. Usually weekend, we overeat. We barbecue, we go to hot pots, we go to banquets. So weekend, we eat a lot. So Monday is a good chance to detox. But of course, you can choose any day you like. Actually, as many days as you like. The more, the better. That's how Green Monday works. And if you forget to do it tomorrow, that's okay. Next Monday, it comes back. So it will come back to remind you again, hey, let's go Green Monday again. So today we have maybe 60, 70 people in the room. Every one of you, if you go back and share this with 10 people, then 70 becomes 700. If you share this online and we have our 100 or 1,000 Facebook friends, then you share it with 1,000 people. So that's how it really can get viral. and each one of us can make an impact. That's how Green Monday works. And then on the business side, what we do is we create all the solutions that help people to go green. So in Hong Kong, we have now 2 locations. Very soon we'll have 4 locations of Green Common. Green Common is very similar to Whole Foods Market, except without meats and seafood. And we also serve dining. We serve whether it's a sit-down restaurant or a grab-and-go deli. So anyone can choose to go green conveniently and deliciously. I guess that's the key, is it has to taste good. I think traditionally a lot of people are scared of vegetarian food because they think it's just not tasty or boring. But now with all the new recipes and all the chefs in the world that are introducing plant-based food, it's becoming much more appealing than before. So Green Common, we aim to become that location. And we are bringing and sourcing all the different products that ultimately we are also bringing these products into traditional restaurants and supermarkets. So Green Common doesn't need to be just an independent shop location, but we are also selling products into other supermarkets and other restaurants so that vegetarian plant-based food becomes much more accessible to anyone. And we have our investment side and our consulting side. On the consulting side, any business would come to us and say, hey, they want to do green, but they don't know how. So we try to help them, whether it's strategy, whether it's implementation, whether it's marketing, or social responsibility. We try to help them. That's our solutions team. And then our venture team focus on investing in companies who are creating new cutting-edge technology or products that can further help people to go green, further help people to eat healthier plant-based food. Yes?
Are you on the stock market then, or are you on the stock market?
No, we are not. We are not.
Okay, so it's a private.
It's still a private. We have investors. I mean, we have investors on the business side. Of course, on the foundation side, this is a not-for-profit, so there are no shareholders of that. But on the business side, yes.
Oh, and your investors, they're usually businesses or like people, like, because I buy stocks, but
Right.
I guess there's a limit, there's a
We
certain
have
amount or-
individuals or we have a business who would invest in us. So that depends on what the scale is and what's their interest. Yeah, and then we would either build these business or invest in business that are in this field. In the last 5 or 7 years, I think the health food industry also is booming. So again, talk about aligning conditions or circumstances. 因緣和合啦, again. If we tried to do this 10 years ago, I think it would be much more difficult because people still have a lot of misperception about food, and global warming at that point was not as severe as it is today. Now everyone can feel it. So those are all kind of the conditions that are more aligned. Ideally, of course, I hope these problems simply do not exist. But now they do exist and they are very severe. So this is one of the platforms that really tried to become the Swiss Army knife to address these major issues. So help people live and eat healthier and then help the world become more sustainable. So ultimately, as today's topic we talk about is ecosystem. Now, what is very unique about our choice of food is now Green Monday doesn't need to be just a green movement. Now we are in a environment of talking about Buddhism. Green Monday is also a mindful movement because every moment when you're choosing, when you decide to not eat chicken or steak and you choose to eat plant-based food, that you are being mindful about your consumption. You are being mindful about how your consumption will have an impact in the rest of the world. and for other people and other animals. So that become a mindful decision. And that mindfulness can carry over from food to other consumption decisions. So when you're about to buy new clothes or about to throw away something that actually can still be used, all of those decisions now also, there's a better chance for you to become mindful. That's why one of the slogans, out of many, but one of the slogans of Green Monday is simply from mindful eating to mindful living. Is we become much more conscious of what we do, what we eat. And that consciousness ultimately will contribute to a better self and better world. So very much applying Buddhist wisdom and the mindfulness that we always practice into daily life. So not to separate practice from action, but to combine the practice into our daily life. So I guess on a personal level, this mission of Green Monday has helped me to practice Buddhism better, because I start to apply what are the words that were taught by Buddha or by many of the masters, start to apply them to actual behavior. First is by myself, and then second is to influence more people to do something along the way. So it's a very rewarding journey, and even though it has only been around for 4 years, but it has created enormous impact, and I cannot find a better, I can't find better things to do. So anywhere I go now, you know, when the right chances come up, I would do a lot of speaking engagements to business, to schools.
How about to governments?
To governments, yes.
I mean, we have a family day, we have all kinds of days
True.
during the year, right? So this should be also with the media and the government, because it's an economical.
Actually, media is very important, you're right.
Do you work with the media?
We work very closely with the media, and if you Google Green Monday, or if you Google,
I've never heard of it before. This is something.
yeah, we haven't come to Canada yet, so this is our first effort. Yes. Sorry.
I also work in a care home, and I'm already thinking like how I could get you in there.
Sure.
Because they, I mean, seniors don't need proteins in the first place. They don't really move.
Right.
Right? So it's just, yeah, I work in a care home as well, and like seniors don't need all the protein they're getting. And I think that would be a great, because there's hundreds of them, right?
We have a lot of materials that, for example, we can send to you, and you can use those infographics. I guess it's okay. Well, I finished presenting them. But those graphics or infographics can be sent to you or anyone, and you can show it to your community, your organization, and that's how we spread. So of course, if I come, you know, I would be more than happy to do that sharing. And we have colleagues now, not just in Hong Kong, but we have colleagues in the US. So for example, one of our colleagues is in Portland, and Portland is not far from Vancouver. So I mean, she can come up too to do that sharing as well. We do this kind of lectures or sharing all the time. And the idea is, you know, to break people's wrong perception.
There would be an uproar from the agricultural, you know, the agricultural.
The business?
Business, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I guess our way, as you can tell, right? I mean, our way is not to shame them or bash them, but our way is hopefully to collaborate with them. And by the way, even if it's not from us, the trend is changing anyway. So a lot of the big, a lot of the big food companies, such as Kraft, Campbell's Soup, Nestle, right? All of these companies are changing their products to healthier options, because whether they like it or not, this is where the world is changing. But in our case, we never directly attack a company, but rather we say, hey, let's work together to shift. So we, in an amazing way, in the last 4.5 years, you cannot find one controversy around Green Monday. I mean, you cannot find one. Because we are always celebrating people making baby steps to live better, to live greener. So you cannot have a company come out and say, no, I'm against environment. Green is bad. You will never have a company who come out and say, don't do anything good for the environment. No one can say that. So in the US, for example, like 12 years ago, they started a movement called Meatless Monday. But unfortunately, not too many people receive that well because the word meatless is very offensive. It's very offensive. And you're also taking something away from people. It means sacrifice. So you never want to start a movement from a negative, in a shaming, bashing, blaming point of view. You want to use a positive, right? So go green. Live green, green. Well, green naturally. Who doesn't like green, right? So, and of course, Meatless Monday is not only a campaign, and in our case, we are a full social venture. So the whole model is also very different. So it's not just the name, but also the model. So
there's a philosophy behind it seems like.
yeah.
Yeah, you're promoting a philosophy of living rather than just taking one food item.
Very much so. I'm particularly happy that this is again at Tung, Yuen, right? And I can talk about my background or my story from a personal, philosophical, or mindful or Buddhist standpoint, because you're absolutely right. This is not just about meats or not meats. This is a whole living philosophy about our approach to build a more sustainable world. So that's why the mindful aspect is so important. I love to combine mindfulness into the sharing of Green Monday, because the term mindfulness to a lot of people could be a little bit abstract. It's just like a vague concept. Okay, so what does that mean, right? What does it mean to be mindful? Do I just sit there and meditate for a couple hours? What exactly is it? But mindfulness should be every minute, every present moment, right? We focus on the present moment and become fully aware and conscious of what we are doing. So even if you're eating, even if you're walking, you can be mindful. So there's a philosophy behind Green Monday, and that is very different from just, saying meat is bad. Very different.
That actually in Vancouver is a big movement since Ecological was starting his Power of Now.
Yeah.
Ecological, I don't know if you know him, but yeah, right? It's all about
Yeah.
being conscious.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's almost 2 o'clock. So I guess, again, we have been doing it already, but definitely I open up for questions. But you can find us on social media. You can definitely find us on Facebook. You can find me as well on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. And definitely, I mean, if you can just, adopt it yourself and share it to, as I said, your family, friends, colleagues, 10 people, 5 people, you will be amazed. I mean, when I started 4 years ago, I did not expect 3 million people in the world now to be doing Green Monday. But now in Hong Kong alone, about 1.6 million people are doing some form of Green Monday. So it doesn't need to be Monday. Again, it could be Friday, it could be lunch, dinner, but people are actively reducing meat consumption. And at lunch just now, I just mentioned that the number of vegetarian restaurants in Hong Kong 3 years ago was 143, now it's 230. So the number of vegetarian restaurants almost doubled in 3 years. And that is unbelievable. I mean, I never imagined that to happen. Even though I was pushing this, I didn't set a goal and say I want vegetarian restaurants to double in 3 years. I didn't set a goal and say I hope 1 million, 2 million, 5 million people will do this. I just focus on the present moment, try to, spread that message, that mindfulness, one person or one occasion at a time. But once people get the message, they can do their research, and they find out it is all true, then it spread. And Green Monday became an ongoing movement. So absolutely, I mean, this is something that we are all capable of spreading. And as a matter of fact, we hope this will become something that 100 million people, 1 billion people will join in, because you can never underestimate the viralness of people. It's once something sticks, right, then it catch on, and that is exactly happening. Thank you. So yeah, any questions? Yeah.
So thank you so much for giving this talk today. I'm so glad that I came. I actually received an email from my medical director. I'm a psychologist at BGH.
Mm-hmm.
And so I use mindfulness a lot in my work with patients, with clients, but I try, to live a mindful life as well, to reduce suffering and to bring awareness to our daily living.
Yes.
I wanted to know whether you have any either flyers or contact information, because working at BGH, which is a huge organization, and we actually have a green department, I think it would be great if we could connect with you and implement that. Yeah, if you have any other business card or flyer, whatever, I'd love to take
I brought
that.
a few business cards. So first of all, I can definitely share, I can give away my business card, that's one. You can go to greenmonday.org, greenmonday.org, and you can find a lot of information. And of course, you can give me your business card or your contact, and then I will have my colleagues follow up. So yes, I mean, most of the, sorry, not most, all the information of Green Monday are shareable. We want as many people to know this as possible. None of this is company secret. These are all, we want as many people to share. So we have a toolkit that we give to either companies, or a toolkit that we give to schools or to individuals. So to empower and make it easy for them to join in. So let's exchange contact afterwards.
Absolutely,
yeah. But greenmonday.org is the easiest way you can find information about us.
And I just want to add one more thing. This is sort of my personal journey as well. I've been a vegetarian for 24 years, and more recently I've connected with the animal advocacy movement here in Vancouver, which is pretty strong. And I just want to add that we have so many choices nowadays to eat cruelty-free, and that even eggs and dairy, as you mentioned, also eggs, come from animals who live lives of living health from the moment they're born to the time they're killed. And we have so many other ways of living healthily and cruelty-free, which hopefully, matches our philosophy in life. That we want to live a life full of joy and happiness and reduce suffering.
Yes, absolutely.
Well said, yes. As a matter of fact, some of the best companies are vegan product companies are here in Vancouver. Some of you, if you don't know, you can definitely try. You can find a brand called Gardein. Gardein is a Vancouver brand. And another brand is called Daya, D-A-I-Y-A. Daya does vegan cheese, so all plant-based. And Gardein does plant-based meat substitute. So both companies are here. Actually, they're based in Vancouver. I'm meeting the CEO of Gardein tomorrow. Yeah, and we carry Gardein products at our shop at Green Common, and it's one of our best sellers. They have a very good vegan fish, but it's all plants, again, it's vegetarian, but it's full of nutrition. They even put omega-3 in it through algae to duplicate the nutrition of fish. So nowadays, with a lot of products, particularly with Western, now sometimes we call it food technology companies or some of the plant-based companies, is they are not just duplicating the texture, they are matching the nutrition of meats, if not more. So some of the brands that even people like Bill Gates is investing in, for example, is called Beyond Meat. Beyond Meat is an LA company, and all the, like recently they just launched a vegan burger, and that burger tastes like a burger, but everything is plants, but at the same time it has more protein, or as much protein as beef,
but it doesn't have any cholesterol because it's not meat. So no cholesterol, but all the protein and vitamins you need. So you're absolutely right. A lot of new companies are coming up with amazing products that facilitate, empower people to switch.
Will those food be preserved by some chemical that's not good for human beings?
Like these food?
Yeah.
Usually, I mean, these companies, I cannot say 100%. Now, for example, with a lot of Asian meat substitute, right? They do put a lot of chemicals or artificial coloring. I'm actually very scared of vegetarian char siu.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, because like for example, with vegetarian roast pork, like 素叉燒啦嚇, the red, because they want to really mimic the char siu look, right? So they add that red coloring, which cannot be healthy. But I think a lot of the newer companies, I cannot say all, but I would say the good ones, most of the ingredients are natural. And they focus very much on creating a healthy product. So that's the difference.
Maybe it's beet juice or something though.
Beetroot, exactly.
Right, you could maybe match that with beet.
Yeah, so instead of using artificial coloring, like with the vegan burger now, they have, it bleeds. So it has blood coming out, but that blood is beetroot. So beetroot, of course, is a healthy ingredient, right? So they are duplicating the texture, but at the same time, they absolutely make sure that it is healthy and natural.
Yeah, I found a lot of like artificial meat. They put a lot of MSG and
Yes.
right? So this is what I'm afraid of. Also, you limit your choices of
Yes.
having vegetarian. I prefer like vegetable
Yes.
or
Oh, yeah.
bean or bean curd, and I don't want to have like preserved food. That is something that concerned about me too. Why I have all the chemical, right?
Well, that's why I think overall whole foods is the best, right? You just eat an eggplant, you eat a pumpkin, you know, you eat a tomato. I mean, a tomato is a tomato. A pumpkin is a pumpkin. I mean, that would be the best. But for certain people, if they need a transition, you know, they still want, if they don't eat cheese, they still want that cheese feel or cheesy texture, then companies like Daya provide a good substitute as an intermediate step.
Just a side question regarding Buddhist, because you know our vegetarian, Buddhist vegetarian is different from the regular vegetarian, because we don't use onion, green onion, or
Yeah.
garlic thing. So how do I put that together in the vegetarian thing?
Okay. Okay, true. Like for some of the Western vegetarian food, whether it's tofurkey, daya, because onions are okay, right? Or garlic is okay. So yes, so that in that case, it may be a little bit difficult for Buddhist vegetarian. So in our store, we actually highlight the different types of products. Some of them, if they have onion and garlic, then we would highlight it has onion and garlic. So Buddhist vegetarian would not buy them. But of course, for normal people who are not Buddhists, then they can still eat it because onions is okay, right? As a matter of fact, onion is quite healthy in many ways. So, and garlic too. I mean, yeah, in Buddhism, I don't know. Some of you probably are familiar. There are 5 plant ingredients that still would not be considered advisable to eat. Yeah, so garlic, not just together, but like independently. So garlic is one, scallion, onion is another one. Chives, yeah. So there are 5, but they are plants. So they are absolutely vegan, but Buddhist tradition would advise to not eat them. Why? I mean, that's a question that I'll ask our master to answer. Yes. So yes, I mean, in our case, I mean, generally, we do not incorporate the religious angle in Green Monday. So we just talk about, hey, let's not eat
animals. Let's not eat seafood. But yes, for Buddhist vegetarian, then you need to select the brands. So that's another reason why we need to have the business arm, is we need to come up with products, or if they don't exist, we would build those companies and those products so that they can cater to different needs. Because people need to have options. Yes?
Can I ask you how you do that? Like, if you have... Can I ask you how to do that? Like, I sometimes have ideas and then, okay, who do I approach? Or do I go to someone and say, hey, can you create a steak, with fat on it? But how do you do that? This is maybe much to ask, but do you go to a producer, or do you meet a friend and you say, hey, can you create this for me?
Well, if you have to scale, I mean, you need to have food product, right? So there are some very advanced food labs or R&D labs around the world, but particularly, again, I'm more familiar with the US. So, for example, in Silicon Valley, there's a company that actually have done a lot of research work. They've created a lot of products for many very well-known brands. So Nestle has used them, Starbucks has used them. Many well-known brands has used them. So I'm in the process of engaging them to come up with new products that will satisfy everyone but taste good. Very important. So, but of course, that becomes a venture, right? Because you need investment. And so that's why Green Monday has to be a social venture. There needs to be the business side to empower the change. It cannot just be a campaign. Campaign would be like talking but no action. We need the walk and the talk together. Well, in this case, it's the talk and the eat.
So if I wanted to venture in with you, is that I can call you and I can say, hey, you know what? I want to invest in the company.
We can discuss that, yes.
Okay.
But yeah, overall, on the foundation side, we would look for people who share this mission, and they would give grants to us or donation to the foundation. But on the business side, then we look for like-minded people who share this mission, and they could either invest, partner. We'll see if there's any match. Yeah. Any last question? Anyone? Yeah, if not, then really, I mean, after this 1 hour or 75 minutes, I guess the 2 words that I want you to take away is just Green Monday. Thank you.